Have you ever watched the person you love destroy your future while smiling as if you should be grateful? I have. The strange part wasn't that my wife betrayed me. The strange part was that I didn't stop her. I simply changed the destination, not because I wanted revenge, because I finally understood something that Marcus Aurelius had written nearly 2,000 years ago. You always own one thing, your response. That single decision changed both our lives forever. The morning of our wedding smelled like fresh flowers and expensive perfume. Everyone said I looked like the luckiest man alive. I smiled for every photograph. I thanked every guest. I shook every hand. Inside, I was simply relieved. 3 years of dating, 1 year engaged, months of planning. It had all led to this day. Her name was Emily. Mine is James. Emily was the kind of woman who could fill a room without saying a word. She was beautiful, confident, intelligent. People naturally looked at her when she entered. I never minded. I was proud to stand beside her. People often asked how I convinced someone like her to marry me. I always laughed. The better question, I would say, is how she convinced me. Back then, I believed love meant choosing each other every single day. I believed loyalty wasn't something you questioned. You simply lived it. After the ceremony, we drove through streets filled with people waving and cheering. Emily leaned against my shoulder. I can't believe we're finally married. Neither can I. She kissed my cheek. For a moment, everything felt perfect. Sometimes life waits until the exact second you feel safe before reminding you that nothing is guaranteed. Our honeymoon was supposed to begin the next morning. 2 weeks in Santorini, a private villa overlooking the sea. I had saved for almost 18 months. No luxury watches, no expensive car, no unnecessary vacations. Every extra dollar went into one dream. I wanted our first trip as husband and wife to become a memory we would tell our children one day. That night, after we reached our hotel near the airport, Emily stepped onto the balcony to answer a phone call. She looked nervous. I noticed because she almost never looked nervous. When she came back inside, I asked gently, "Everything okay?" She hesitated. Then she smiled. "Just my cousin." I nodded. Trust is strange. When you truly trust someone, you don't investigate. You don't search for hidden meanings. You don't imagine lies. You simply believe. That was my mistake. The next morning, we arrived at the airport before sunrise. People hurried past us pulling heavy suitcases. Children laughed. Coffee machines hummed. Announcements echoed across the terminal. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter. Until I saw him. Ryan, Emily's ex-boyfriend. He stood near our gate, wearing sunglasses and holding a travel backpack. At first, I assumed it was a coincidence. Airports are large. People travel. It happens. Then Emily saw him. She froze, not in fear, in recognition. Then she smiled, not the polite smile people give strangers, the kind reserved for someone who already belongs in your memories. Ryan walked toward us. Emily. Ryan. No surprise, no confusion, just familiarity. He finally looked at me. "You must be James." I forced a smile. "I am." He reached out his hand. His grip was confident, too confident. Emily quickly interrupted. "I forgot to tell you." Those 6 words changed everything. "I forgot to tell me what?" She looked almost embarrassed. "Ryan's been going through a hard time." I stayed quiet. She continued. "He booked the same island weeks ago. What are the chances?" She laughed nervously. "I didn't." Ryan spoke before I could answer. "Don't worry. I won't bother you too." Nobody had accused him of anything. Yet, somehow he was already defending himself. Something inside me shifted, just slightly. Not enough to call it suspicion. Enough to notice. We boarded the plane. Emily insisted Ryan take the empty seat across the aisle. It'll make the flight less awkward. For whom? I wondered. The first hour passed quietly. Then I woke from a short nap. Emily was laughing. Not with me. With him. She leaned across the aisle while they shared headphones, watching something together on his tablet. I stared out the window instead. Clouds drifted beneath us like endless white mountains. I told myself I was overthinking. Jealousy can invent stories that aren't real. A Stoic doesn't react to imagination. He reacts to facts. So I waited for facts. Hours later we landed. The Mediterranean sun painted everything gold. The air smelled of salt and warm stone. It should have felt magical. Instead, I felt strangely invisible. Ryan somehow ended up riding in the same shuttle toward the resort. Emily said, "It just made sense." Again, for whom? The villa overlooked the sea exactly as the photographs promised. White walls, blue water, silence, beauty, the kind of place where people begin forever. Emily stepped onto the balcony. Ryan stood on the neighboring balcony. They waved, not because they had accidentally seen each other, because they already knew where each other would be staying. That wasn't coincidence. That was planning. I felt my stomach tighten. Emily noticed my expression. "You're thinking too much." "Am I?" "He's just here as a friend." Just, such a dangerous word. Just a friend. Just dinner. Just one drink. Just a conversation. Sometimes betrayal doesn't arrive wearing a mask. Sometimes it introduces itself politely. That evening we walked into the town for dinner. Halfway there, Emily looked at her phone. "Oh, what?" Ryan asked if he could join us. I stopped walking. The sea breeze carried the sound of distant waves. People laughed around us. Somewhere nearby, a violin played. Everything felt peaceful, except inside me. "It's our honeymoon." "I know." "So why is he asking?" She sighed. "James, don't make this awkward." Awkward. That word echoed louder than the waves. Not disrespectful. Not inappropriate. Not hurtful. Awkward. As if my discomfort were the real problem. I looked into her eyes. For the first time since our wedding, I couldn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. Still, I nodded. "Fine." Ryan joined us 20 minutes later. They told stories from college. Inside jokes. Old memories. People they both knew. I sat there like a guest at my own honeymoon. Nobody intended to make me feel alone. That was the painful part. It happened naturally, as though I no longer belonged in the center of my own life. That night, after Emily fell asleep, I quietly walked on a balcony. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath the moonlight, calm, unbothered, indifferent. I remembered something Epictetus taught. If someone can steal your peace, you handed it to them first. For hours, I stared into the darkness. Then I made a decision, not out of anger, not out of jealousy, out of clarity. If Emily had already chosen where her heart wanted to travel, then perhaps I needed to choose where my life would go instead. And before sunrise, while she was still asleep beside me, I opened my laptop. I canceled one reservation, booked another, and I told no one. The easiest thing in the world is to react. Someone hurts you, you hurt them back. Someone disrespects you, you try to prove your worth. Someone walks away, you chase them. But the hardest thing a person can do is remain still when their emotions are screaming for action. That night, sitting alone on the balcony, I had every reason to explode. I could have woken Emily up. I could have demanded answers. I could have confronted Ryan. I could have turned our honeymoon into a battlefield. But I remembered something I had learned years before. A person who cannot control himself will always be controlled by someone else. So I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, because I finally understood that anger is often a temporary feeling that creates permanent damage. The next morning, Emily woke up smiling. "Good morning, husband." For a second, I almost forgot everything. That was the cruel part about love. Even after someone hurts you, your heart still remembers the moments they made you feel safe. "Morning." I replied. She looked at me carefully. "You seem quiet." "I'm tired." She nodded. Maybe she believed me. Maybe she didn't. Then she checked her phone. A small smile appeared on her face. I noticed. I always noticed. Ryan wanted to show us a hidden beach today. Us. That word felt strange. Our honeymoon had slowly become something I was sharing with someone else. I looked at her. "Do you want to go?" She smiled. "Why not? We're here to enjoy ourselves." I almost laughed. Enjoy ourselves. I wonder when exactly we stopped being ourselves. But I didn't argue. I simply packed my bag. Emily thought I was accepting everything. She didn't know I had already made my choice. The original plan was simple. 2 weeks in Santorini. 2 weeks of sunsets, beaches, and memories. But while Emily slept, I changed everything. I booked a flight to a small island she had never heard of, a quiet place away from crowded tourist areas. A place called Naxos, not because it was more beautiful, not because it was more expensive, because I needed somewhere I could hear my own thoughts again. I needed distance, not from Emily, from the version of myself that kept begging to be chosen. The hidden beach was beautiful. Blue water, golden sand, white cliffs. Anyone looking from the outside would think we were living a dream. But dreams become painful when you realize you're the only one awake. Ryan walked beside Emily. They laughed. They remembered old stories. I watched them from a distance. And for the first time, I stopped feeling angry. I felt tired. There's a moment when pain becomes so heavy that it stops feeling like pain. It becomes understanding. I finally accepted something. I could not force someone to value what they had. I could only decide what I was willing to accept. That evening, Emily sat beside me near the water. You've been different since we arrived. I looked at the ocean. Different how? You're quieter. I smiled slightly. Maybe I'm just listening more. She looked confused. Listening to what? The truth. Her expression changed. What does that mean? I looked at her. For a moment, I wanted to ask everything. Why did you invite him? Why did you hide it? Do you still love him? Was our wedding just a mistake? But I stopped because I realized something important. A person who wants to explain themselves will not need to be forced, and a person who doesn't will never give you the answer you are searching for. So I simply said, I think we both know something feels different. She looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. That hurt more than anger would have. Denial, the quietest form of rejection. The next morning, I woke up before Emily. I sat at the edge of the bed and looked at my wedding ring, a small piece of metal, yet somehow carrying years of promises. People often think Stoicism means not caring. They are wrong. Stoicism is not about becoming emotionless. It is about feeling everything without becoming a prisoner of those feelings. I loved Emily. That was the truth. But love without respect slowly becomes self-destruction. I opened my phone. The confirmation email was still there. The new flight, the new destination, the new beginning. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed my phone. I would tell her soon. But not yet. I wanted to understand one thing first. Was Emily unaware of what she was doing? Or was she choosing it? That answer mattered. Later that day, something happened that changed everything. Emily left her phone on the table while she went to get coffee. Normally, I would never touch it. Trust means respecting boundaries. But then the screen lit up. A message appeared. From Ryan. I didn't want to read it. I truly didn't. But the first line was already visible. I can't believe we finally got this trip together. My heart stopped, not because I was surprised, because I wasn't. Some part of me already knew. I looked away. I didn't need more proof. But then another message appeared. After everything, I still think we belong together. The world became silent. The restaurant, the voices, the sounds around me, everything disappeared. There it was, the truth I had been avoiding. This wasn't an accidental meeting. This was an old friend. This was a plan. Our honeymoon wasn't just interrupted. It was shared. I placed the phone back exactly where it was. No anger, no scene, no tears, just silence. And strangely, that silence felt powerful. Because when reality finally arrives, you don't need to fight it. You only need to accept it. That night, Emily came back to the room. She smiled. Tomorrow we should explore the island more. I looked at her. Actually, tomorrow we're going somewhere else. She laughed. What do you mean? I picked up my passport. We're leaving. Her smile disappeared. What? I changed our destination. She stared at me. You did what? I calmly handed her the new flight details. For the first time during our marriage, she had no words. Naxos. Yes. Why? I looked out the window toward the ocean. Because I realized I came here to start marriage. I paused, but I was the only one still acting like I was in one. Her face changed. Anger, confusion, fear, all at once. James, this is ridiculous. Maybe, or maybe it was the first honest thing I had done in months. She grabbed her bag. Are you trying to punish me? I looked at her. No. Then what are you doing? I took a breath. I'm choosing myself. The room became quiet, and for the first time, Emily looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not the man who would always forgive. Not the man who would always wait. Not the man who would always stay. But the man who finally understood his own value. The next morning, we boarded a different flight. A flight she never expected. A destination she never chose. And a journey that would reveal a truth neither of us was prepared to face. The flight to Naxos was only 40 minutes. But sometimes the shortest journeys reveal the longest distances. Emily sat beside me, staring out the window. She had barely spoken since we left Santorini. The woman who had spent hours laughing with Ryan was now completely silent. And strangely, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel like I had won. Because when someone you love finally notices your pain, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like proof that they should have noticed it sooner. The clouds passed beneath us. The world looked peaceful from above. That was the strange thing about life. From a distance, everything looked simple. A broken relationship, a betrayal, a difficult choice. But when you're living inside the storm, every emotion feels heavier. Every memory feels sharper. Every question feels impossible to answer. When we arrived in Naxos, Emily looked around. It was nothing like Santorini. No crowded streets. No luxury resorts. No perfect honeymoon photographs. Just quiet roads, small villages, and the sound of waves touching the shore. This is where you brought me? Her voice wasn't angry. It was disappointed. I looked at her. Yes. She shook her head. I don't understand you anymore. I almost smiled, because I had been thinking the same thing. Except I wasn't confused about her. I was confused about myself. How long had I ignored the signs? How many times had I convinced myself that love meant patience? How many moments had I accepted discomfort because I was afraid of losing someone? Those questions hurt more than anything Emily had done, because the hardest person to confront is often yourself. Our hotel was small, nothing compared to the villa we had left behind, but it was peaceful. The owner greeted us warmly. You came at a good time, he said. The island is quiet this week. Quiet. That word followed me everywhere. I realized I had spent months surrounded by noise, promises, excuses, opinions, fear. Now, in a small island surrounded by water, I finally had space to think. That night, Emily sat across from me at dinner. The candle between us flickered. For a moment, it looked like the beginning of a romantic evening. Then reality returned. James. I looked up. We need to talk. I placed my glass down. Okay. She took a deep breath. I know you saw the message. I didn't answer. Her eyes moved away. I didn't want you to find out like that. I stayed quiet. What do you want me to say? She looked frustrated. Anything. Why? Because you're acting like you don't care. That sentence surprised me. Not because it was true, because it was completely wrong. I cared so much that I had finally stopped destroying myself. I care, Emily. Then why are you so calm? I looked at the ocean outside. Because I spent too much time being controlled by emotions. She didn't understand. Most people think calmness means someone doesn't feel pain. But sometimes calmness is what happens after someone has felt too much pain. I never planned for this to happen, she whispered. I looked at her. Then what did you plan? She remained silent, and that silence answered more than words could. I was confused, she finally said. About what? About my past. I nodded slowly. So you brought your past into our future? Her eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. No, you don't know what I was feeling. I looked at her. You're right. She seemed surprised. I don't know everything you felt. I paused, but I know what I felt. The room became quiet. I felt like a stranger on my own honeymoon. That was the first time I said it out loud, and saying it made the pain real. Emily lowered her voice. Do you hate me? The question caught me off guard, because hate was easy. Hate would have been simple. But I didn't hate her. I hated the situation. I hated the choices. I hated the version of myself that kept ignoring reality. No. She looked at me. No. I don't hate you. Then why are you leaving? I thought about that question. Because sometimes leaving isn't about abandoning someone. Sometimes leaving is about returning to yourself. Because I can't build a life with someone who is still living in another one. Her tears fell, and for the first time, I saw something different. Not guilt, not anger, regret. But regret is complicated. Regret appears after damage is done. The next few days were strange. We explored the island. We walked through old streets. We watched sunsets. From the outside, we looked like a married couple enjoying a vacation. But inside, something had changed. We were no longer pretending. And sometimes honesty feels more painful than a lie, because lies allow you to hold on to hope. Truth forces you to make decisions. One evening, we sat near the water. Emily spoke quietly. I miss who we used to be. I looked at the waves. So do I. Do you think we can fix this? I didn't answer immediately, because a Stoic understands something important. Not everything broken is meant to be repaired. Some things break because they were never built on strong foundations. The next morning, something unexpected happened. I received an email. The sender's name made me freeze. Ryan. I stared at the screen. Emily noticed. What is it? I didn't answer. The email contained only a few lines, but those words changed everything. James, I know you probably hate me, but there's something you need to know about Emily and me. I read the next sentence. Then I read it again, because I couldn't believe it. The reason I came on a honeymoon wasn't because Emily invited me. My heart started beating faster. I was trying to stop something from happening. I looked at Emily. She was watching my face. What did he say? I slowly lowered the phone. For days, I thought I understood the story. I thought there was only one victim, one betrayal, one villain. But maybe I had been wrong. The next line of Ryan's message waited on the screen, and it revealed a truth that would change everything I believed about my marriage. You don't know what Emily was planning before your wedding. For a few seconds, I forgot how to breathe. The ocean waves continued moving. The wind continued blowing. People continued walking along the beach. The world did not stop because my heart had. That is one of the strangest things about painful moments. You expect the universe to recognize your suffering. You expect everything around you to become silent. But life continues, even when yours feels like it has collapsed. I looked at the message again. You don't know what Emily was planning before your wedding. Those words stayed in my mind, not because they hurt, because they confused me. After everything I had discovered, I thought I understood the story. Emily betrayed me. Ryan was the person from her past. I was the person left behind. Simple, clean, easy to accept. But life is rarely that simple. Sometimes the truth is not a door opening. Sometimes it is a hallway filled with more doors. James! Emily's voice pulled me back. What did he say? I looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see anger. I saw fear. Real fear. And that scared me more than anything. Because fear often appears when someone knows something is about to be revealed. I turned the phone toward myself. Why did Ryan say he came here to stop something? Her face changed instantly, only for a second, but I saw it, the hesitation, the small moment where her mind searched for an answer. I don't know. A simple sentence. But I had heard it too many times. I stood up. Emily, what? Please don't lie to me again. Her eyes filled with tears. I am not. Then tell me the truth. Silence. The same silence that had followed us since the beginning. But this time it was different. Before, silence protected her. Now, silence was exposing her. That evening, I walked alone to the small streets of Naxos. I needed space. Not to punish her. Not to make her chase me. I needed space because my mind was trying to understand everything. Stoicism teaches that we suffer more from our judgments than from events themselves. The event had happened. I cannot change it. But my judgment of it, that was where my suffering lived. I kept asking, why wasn't I enough? Why did she choose him? Why did this happen to me? But then I asked a different question. What if this wasn't about my value? What if it was about her inability to face her own choices? That question changed something inside me, because I realized I had been carrying a burden that never belonged to me. When I returned to the hotel, Emily was sitting on the balcony. Her eyes were red. I need to tell you something. I sat across from her. Okay. She took a deep breath. Before we got married, I was going to call off the wedding. The words felt like a wave hitting my chest, but I remained quiet. Why? She looked down. Because I was confused. About Ryan? She nodded. The pain was there. But strangely, it didn't feel as sharp as before. Maybe because I had already accepted the possibility. When did you decide? She wiped her tears. 2 weeks before our wedding. 2 weeks. 14 days. The amount of time between a dream and a disaster. I was scared, she continued. I'd spent years with Ryan. He was my first serious relationship. When he came back into my life, old feelings came back too. I listened, not because it was easy, because I needed the truth. He asked me to leave. Did you want to? She didn't answer. And again, that was the answer. I should have told you, she whispered. Yes, I should have ended things before marrying you. Yes. She looked at me. Why are you agreeing so calmly? Because I had learned something important. Anger sometimes gives people an excuse to ignore what they did. Calmness removes that escape. You made a choice, Emily. Her eyes lowered, and now I have to make mine. Then she said something I never expected. But Ryan didn't come here because I wanted him to. I looked at her. What? He found out I was going on my honeymoon. How? She looked away. I told him. That hurt. Even after everything, it still hurt. He came because he wanted to convince me to leave you. Did he? She shook her head. No. Why? Her voice became softer. Because when I saw him again, I realized something. What? That I was confusing history with love. Those words stayed with me. Because sometimes people don't miss a person. They miss who they were when they were with that person. The next morning, I finally replied to Ryan. I asked one question. Why did you really come? His response arrived an hour later. Because I made the same mistake years ago. I read the message carefully. I lost Emily because I was selfish. I thought love meant keeping someone close, even when I wasn't ready to be the person they needed. Then came the sentence that shocked me. When I saw her marry you, I realized she had chosen someone better than me. I stared at the screen. For the first time, I saw Ryan differently. Not as a villain, as another broken person. Someone who had also failed to understand love. That evening, Emily and I watched the sunset. No arguments. No accusations. Just two people sitting with the consequences of their choices. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I nodded. Good. She looked surprised. Good. Because forgiveness isn't something someone can demand. She looked at the ocean. I wish I could change everything. So do I. Then why don't you hate me? I thought for a moment. Because hate keeps me connected to you. She looked at me, and I don't want my peace to depend on someone else's actions anymore. The words were not meant to hurt her. They were meant to free me. That night, I made my final decision. I wasn't going to fight for a marriage that only one person was trying to save. I wasn't going to compete with a memory. I wasn't going to beg someone to choose me. The next morning, I booked my return flight. Alone. But before leaving, Emily stopped me. I need to tell you one more thing. I turned around. Her expression was serious. There is something else you don't know. I waited. She took a deep breath. The reason I married you. She paused. It wasn't because I forgot Ryan. My heart became heavy. Then she continued. It was because you were the only person who ever made me want to become better. I said nothing. Because sometimes the most painful truths are not about losing someone. They are about realizing you had their love, but they were too lost to protect it. And as I walked toward the airport the next morning, I carried one final question with me. Was this the end of our story? Or was this the beginning of the truth we both needed? The airport was quieter than I expected. Maybe because I was leaving early. Maybe because something inside me had finally become quiet too. I stood near the departure gate with my bag beside me. A few months ago, I had imagined this airport differently. I imagined Emily and me holding hands. I imagined us talking about the memories we created. I imagined returning home as a stronger couple. Instead, I was leaving alone. But strangely, I wasn't broken. I was sad. There is a difference. People often confuse sadness with weakness. They believe if you are hurt, you have lost. But sadness simply proves that something mattered. The goal was never to become someone who feels nothing. The goal was to become someone who can feel deeply without losing himself. Before boarding, Emily called my name. I turned around. She was standing a few steps away. Her eyes looked tired, not from a lack of sleep, from carrying the weight of her own choices. James. I didn't speak. She walked closer. I know you don't owe me anything. I waited, but I wanted to say goodbye properly. I nodded. Okay. She looked down. I spent so much time trying to understand what I wanted. A small tear moved down her cheek. But I never stopped to think about what my choices were doing to you. I listened, not because everything was fixed, not because her words erased the pain, but because listening was the final act of respect I could give. I thought love was about following my feelings. She looked at me, but I learned that love is also about responsibility. Those words surprised me, because they were the words I had wanted to hear before everything happened, not after. Do you hate me for what I did? I shook my head. No. She looked at me. How? I smiled slightly, because hate would mean I am still waiting for you to become someone different. She became quiet, and I stopped waiting. That sentence hurt both of us, but it was honest, and honesty is sometimes painful because it doesn't allow us to hide. The boarding announcement echoed to the airport. My flight was ready. Emily looked at me one last time. I hope you find someone who gives you everything you deserve. I picked up my bag. I hope you become someone who can give that to yourself first. She nodded. Then I walked away. Not dramatically, not angrily, just calmly. Because the strongest endings are not always loud. Sometimes they are quiet footsteps moving toward a better life. 6 months passed. Life changed slowly, not like movies. There was no instant transformation, no sudden moment where all pain disappeared. Healing rarely works that way. Some mornings were difficult. Some memories still appeared without warning. A song, a place, a photograph, a familiar smell. The past has a strange habit of knocking on your door when you think you have moved on. But every time it came, I learned to answer differently. I stopped asking, why did this happen to me? I started asking, what can this teach me? That single change transformed everything. I began rebuilding my life, not to prove something to Emily, not to make her regret losing me. That would mean she still controlled my actions. I rebuilt because I finally understood my own worth. I started focusing on things I had ignored. My health, my friendships, my goals, my peace. I discovered something important. A person who depends on others for happiness will always live in fear of losing them. But a person who builds peace within himself can love freely, without begging, without chasing, without fear. 1 year after the honeymoon, I received a message from Emily. I stared at the name on my screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part wanted closure. The message was simple. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to tell you something. I finally understand what I lost. I continued reading. I spent years looking for someone who made me feel excited, but I didn't understand that excitement is not always love. Sometimes peace is love. I sat quietly, because those words carried a lesson we both had learned too late. Ryan and I are not together. I realized I wasn't missing him. I was missing a version of myself from the past. I closed my eyes, not because I was happy, not because I wanted her back, Because I finally understood. Sometimes people don't leave because you weren't enough. Sometimes they leave because they haven't learned how to value what they have. A few days later, I met an old friend for coffee. He asked me something I had heard many times. Do you regret marrying her? I thought about it. The wedding, the betrayal, the honeymoon, the flight, the pain. Then I answered, no. He looked surprised. No. I shook my head. Every experience teaches us something. I learned what love should be. I learned what respect means. And I learned that losing someone is not the same as losing yourself. He smiled. You really changed. Maybe I did, but not because someone hurt me. Because I decided pain would not be the thing that defined me. The Stoics understood something that many people spend their whole lives trying to learn. You cannot control what people choose. You cannot control their feelings. You cannot control their actions. You can only control your response. Marcus Aurelius spent his life surrounded by betrayal, war, and uncertainty. Yet he reminded himself, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not the actions of others, not their approval, not their loyalty. Your thoughts, your choices, your character. Looking back now, I don't remember the honeymoon as a trip where my marriage fell apart. I remember it as a trip where I found myself again. I thought changing the destination was about leaving Emily behind, but I was wrong. The real destination was never another island. It was peace, because sometimes life takes away the person you thought you needed, so you can finally meet the person you were meant to become. And the heaviest truth I ever learned was this. The moment you stop begging someone to choose you is the moment you finally choose yourself. If this story gave you a different way to look at pain, love, and personal strength, remember that your peace is always worth protecting. Subscribe for more stories and lessons inspired by Stoic wisdom.